So today we're going to have a look at security. We'll go over the basics of security in Business Central. We'll focus more on the SaaS side anyway, because that's where Microsoft are pushing everyone. And we'll take a look at some of the new features that they have brought in as well that might make your life a little bit easier when it comes to security in the system. So what we're going to be focusing on, licensing and access, license configurations, permissions in general, and then we'll have a look at some of the new bits around security groups and permission exclusions, which you guys may not have seen before. So licensing and access. For those of you that you don't know, there's 3 different types of license that you can get with Business Central SaaS environment anyway. Most of you, most people, unless you're doing manufacturing, will be on Essentials licensing. But then if you need to have somebody who just has read-only access, you'd be a team member. And I say, if you have got manufacturing in there, you'll go through to premium. Now, licensing is assigned to, let's see if we can get onto that, assigned to people using Active Directory in Azure. So if we come into here and we check on our users, what you'll be able to do is assign, say we'll go for Alan here, a license into Business Central. So we'll see here is he's already got the license on there. Now, unless you assign the license in Azure or through your Office Admin Center, then they will not be able to access Business Central. Once that's been assigned and it's there, what we have is 2 different ways the user can access the system. If they try to log on, it will automatically bring them through. If your admin in the system wants to do it as a bulk import, you can use this update users from Microsoft 365 feature on the users page, and that will bring through all the changes that you have. If you've removed some users, if you've disabled their access, running this update will remove them from the access in Business Central so they cannot log in. Okay, so once that's done, once you have access to the system, you then have a few different ways to give users permissions to see what they can actually do when they're in the system themselves, and a few ways to limit what they can do. This is kind of as it is now. This will change slightly going forward in the future. So once you've given somebody a license, what you can actually do is set permissions up for that license. So if I go into a Business Central Essentials one here, if you're given an Essentials license, what this means is when you first log into the system, you can be given these permissions. These permissions can be edited as well, so they can fit to what your business needs. And it's a very quick and easy way of assigning everybody a set of permissions that allows them to get going with their job without having to get into the nitty-gritty of giving them the exact permissions they have for their role. That can come afterwards, but it's a good starting point from this one. Beyond that, if we go to our users page, and we'll have a look at Alan again. He's our favorite person today. What you'll see is that there is a number of user permission sets that Alan's been added on. So these can be added here in the user page. What you also have, and I'll actually switch to my older system here, is what is known as user groups. So user groups are brought in a few years ago now. It hasn't always been in the system, but it's a way of being able to assign permissions on a whole. So you give them a group, that group has some permissions underneath it, and you can then assign the members for that group there. You see, I'm the only one with full access into the system at the moment. And again, these permissions can be edited, can be updated, can be defined by you to define what access they have in the system as you go. Okay, let's come back to our card here. So after they've come into the system, they've got their license, they've got their permission sets. There's still a couple of different things that you can do to help tailor what users can do in the system. The first one is giving them their user setup. most of you that are using Business Central now should be quite used to this. You assign a user in here, and then from here you can say what posting dates you can post from, so you can stop people posting into the past or into the future. And now they've also brought in this feature for those of you that are on one of the updates a few weeks ago on our Find It More Fridays. You can now stop people being able to invoice into the system from both the sales and purchase side as well. And then finally, not really a kind of security bit, but more to help people in the system. You assign a user a profile, a role, and that role dictates what they can see on the screen, what they can do on their day-to-day job. And again, they can be edited and sorted for you. So just to show you here, I'm set up at the moment as a business manager, but I can change it to a sales order processor, and then that changes what I can see in the system. It doesn't affect what you can get to in the search, but does say give you a nice way of defining what people can do and see from the home page. Let's just let that load through. Always likes to take its time when we're doing this. Right, we'll let that load through anyway as you go. So that's Business Central Security very, very quickly as it is now. What we have is a couple of new features that are currently in the system. They've been applied very, very recently that are there to kind of bring it forward a little bit. So we've just gone over user groups that are in the current system at the moment. They're actually being removed, and it's being replaced by security groups. Security groups are in essence the same thing, but instead of creating it in Business Central, what you do is you create it outside the application, and that means that it can be applied across applications. We all know Microsoft want you to have their whole suite of solutions, so their CRM, their customer service management, all the rest of them. The idea being that at some point you'll be able to set a security group that you can then apply across all these platforms. So if I come back onto our demo environment here, what you will have under your search is something called security groups on here. What you can't do from here is create a new one, but you can see if you've got anything available here to assign. So as I say, they're not created in Business Central, they're actually created either in Azure or in your Office tenant. So if we come back to our portal on Azure and we come home, we take a look at our Active Directory. In here, you have a section called Groups. And under here, you have some groups that are already preset, and you've got a group type here. So the one we're looking for at the moment is security, and we don't have one already there. So we'll create a new one. Of type security, you've got your Microsoft 365 as well, but security is the one that we want. We'll call this Demo SG. You can give it a description if you need, but it can the same thing. And then underneath there, what you can do is you can set an owner. So who's in control of this? Well, I'm going to give myself control. And then you can set the members that belong to that. So this is pulling from your Azure Active Directory anyway, so you'll see all your users on there. And it doesn't kind of filter it towards who has access to Business Central or not. I know, for instance, that Alan does because he's our favorite person of the day. So I can select him and add him to the group there, and I can click Create. We give that a second, we give that a little refresh, and what we should see down here is our demo security group here. If we click into here, we'll see that it's a security group. We have one user on there as well. Our user hasn't come through. Let's see what that's done in there. So now if we come back into Business Central and we click New, what we should see is our group down here. There we go. And we've got Alan just as a member down in the corner there. So at this point, it's exactly the same as a user group would be. So you've got your members, and then you've got your permissions underneath. So in here, you can come in and set their permissions. So we'll go access into the system there, and that will flow through exactly the same way. Again, it can be company specific. So you can have a security group for one company and a different one for a different company. It's just a case of what you pull in down here. The key point with security groups, as I say, is managed externally from Business Central and then brought in. Okay, finally, last thing I'm going to show you today, and this is for probably our point of view, and even yours is probably going to be the best thing around. Historically, when it comes to permissions, you have to assign people permissions for everything on their job role individually. Now, that takes a long time, and what you end up having is, oh, let's just give everybody super permissions, which is great. They have access to everything in the system, but your auditors won't like it too much, and the amount of customers we take over, and we see this and they go, actually, it's just easier to do it this way. Nobody gets those error messages popping up saying you don't have permission for this table. It's easy, but it's not great. Now there's a different way of being able to do this. So if I pull up the system again and we come into our permission sets, and I'll create a new one here. We'll call this Super No Bank, and then I can define the permissions on there. So at the moment, I've got no permissions set on here. For those of you that aren't system admins and don't know, if you have an object ID of 0 here, it means that you have access to absolutely everything. So I'll put yes in all of these. And in essence, if I left it like this, then what you'd have is a super user. We don't want that. One of the biggest questions we get from clients is, I want my users to be able to see everything, but actually I don't want them to be able to see the chart of accounts, and I don't want them to be able to see the bank accounts. Well, we now have a type called exclude that will allow us to do that. So if I come into here, we'll search GL accounts. There we go, it's number 15, I'll grab that. There we go, and we'll do another one very quickly. Or bank account. And it really is as easy as that. So now if you assigned the user Super No Bank, what they'll be able to do is come in, access all the system, but they won't be able to see anything around the GL accounts or the bank account table.